Hello everyone, I'm Skratch. Welcome to the channel. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video. Hope you guys are having an amazing day. Wish you guys a fantastic week ahead. In today's video, we're gonna talk about the top 10 best nukers in the entire game, and I'm talking about Arena. The very high-end Arena is gonna be kind of like done from my own perspective. That's what I'm playing, and that's how we're gonna do it. Now, this can be very situational. I want you guys to keep this in mind, depending of where you are in the game, what other champions you have available, what builds you have on your champions, and how well you actually know the game in order to utilize these champions to their max potential. If you're fighting in lower tiers, pretty much all the nukers that we have in the game will be doing a great job against most of the teams that you're fighting, because there's nothing special against those defenses that you're fighting in the lower tiers. But once you start climbing tiers, a lot of champions become more irrelevant, and you're gonna require specific nukers to be able to counter the defenses. That's kind of like how the game plays out. Maybe some of the champions might have to shift around, but we're gonna rank them from 10 to 1, guys. We're gonna see which champion wears the crown, and I gotta say, I would have never expected some of these champions to make it in the top 10, not even in the top 20. Let me just put it like that. Today's video is brought to you by ELSkratch. It's a free-to-play 3D fantasy gacha game featuring over 100 unique heroes. I started playing this game a couple of days ago, and the main things that really captured me were the great graphics and the great character design. ELSkratch is consistently and frequently being updated, so there's always something interesting to do. This is a free mobile game, so you're gonna be able to play it pretty much everywhere you guys want. If you like what you see on the screen and you want to join me in ELSkratch, click on the link in the description down below, or scan the QR code you see on the screen to download the game right now. Plus, just to get you guys started, use my promo code ELSkratch to get you some freebies. And moving to the game, look what we have here. We just got some free pulls after completing the tutorial. Let's see what are we getting. Ooh, nice. We just got a new elite hero, Niviana. Now, if you're not familiar with her, Niviana is a powerful mage who casts deadly spells upon her enemies. Not only that she's the main damage dealer in a team, she also helps increase her allies' damage during the battle. But my favorite hero so far is Lyatil. Lyatil is a powerful elven ranger who can deal tons of damage to enemies by marking them and hunting them down, while also significantly reducing their defensive capabilities. Now, if you're looking to challenge yourself, you love the Dragon Abyss, where you can find the most difficult bosses and toughest battles in the entire game. But don't forget to venture into the roguelike mode, Spirit Realm, take on the Sky Tower, or even the Isle of Mists to claim even more powerful rewards. And by the way, make sure to use my exclusive promo code ELSkratch. These codes are super rare, about 100 of them, so don't wait around. Join me right now and download the game by following the link in the description down below. I'll see you all guys on the battlefield.
ELSkratch. Play for free now.
We're gonna start straight off the back with number 10, and the reason why I'm only ranking him here is because it's not as easy to use against most of the teams. He's working against specific teams only, but this at a very high-end Platinum Arena is completely making people change their defenses because they're getting easily farmed. And of course, we're talking about Nokdar the Headhunter. He recently got buffed. Look at that. Nokdar making it in the top 10 Arena champions. I can't believe it. Basically, he doesn't have very great base stats all around, how you guys can see on the screen. 12k HP, 1k defense, but he has 1.7k attack, which is great. Unfortunately, he doesn't hit extremely hard. With the A1 attacks one enemy, heals the champion by 10% of their max HP, grants an extra turn if the attack kills an enemy. Don't rely on this skill to go in and just kill everybody with it, because it's not going to happen. But if the enemy is super low, it can come in hand. The A2 attacks all enemies. After attacking, this champion sacrifices HP equal to 50% of their max HP, then places a 15% continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns. The HP sacrifice will happen even if this kills the champion. You can start with this, move over to the A2 if you're fast enough. There are a lot of different things in play when you are building the champion and how you're utilizing his kit, you know. You can build him on immunity, you can build him on frenzy, you can build him on reflex just to count on the A3, but you kind of like need to have him fast against Taras and teams like this, so immunity might be the best way so you don't get feared either. The A3 sacrifices HP equals to 50% of this champion's max HP, then equalizes the HP levels with the target enemy, grants an extra turn, which is great. The lower the HP on him, the lower is gonna be the HP that you're gonna drop on the enemy, and then another champion can swoop in and do the cleanup. Revives this champion with 50% HP and full turn meter when killed if all other allies are alive. Does not work if there are multiple knockdowns in the team. He has an attack aura for all battles by 33%, which is definitely pretty solid. Moving over to the next champion that we have on the list, guys. I gotta say it, he aged pretty well. Now, he's been at the top for a long time, right? And now he's slowly going down for the last half a year, I would say. That champion is going to be Candraphone. Not only that he has the Veil mechanic, which allows him to kind of like hide himself and have a much better survivability than most of the champions, but even if a Warlord or a Yumeko locks him, his A1 can be devastating. Attacks one enemy, places an extra hit if the target is under any buffs. And guess what? Everybody's running buffs on their champions nowadays. We don't have buff strippers running around in high-end arena, so Candraphone is still very deadly with this A1. Pretty good base stats on the champion all around. Attacks all enemies with A2, grants an extra turn, and resets the cooldown on the hunt skill if this attack kills an enemy, which can be pretty powerful on a 3-turn cooldown. On the hunt, on a 5-turn cooldown, places Perfect Veil, increase attack, increase speed, increase crit damage buff on this champion for 2 turns. The passive, damage increases by 40 while attacking under Veil, receives 40% less damage while under a Veil, and boosts the champion's turn meter by 15% each time this champion receives damage under a Veil or Perfect Veil. It's pretty nice. Plus, he places a Perfect Veil on himself each time an enemy's turn meter is filled. Now, this buff cannot be removed. He offers great survivability, and on top of it, how I mentioned, lots and lots of damage. Like with the A1, he's very powerful, and the A2 hits pretty hard if he's under a Veil. Increases ally attack in arena battles by 33%. So this champion, he's definitely aging pretty well even for arena. A lot of people are still using this bad boy. The next champion that we have on the list today, guys, is gonna be no one else but Leorius the Proud. Now, he's been pretty solid. He actually was the king for a little while, but since it dropped quite a bit. Now, the main thing with him is that he deals tons of damage. He needs to drop HP to deal a lot of damage, but he's not as effective all around as other Nukers. Like, you need to bring something to the team more than damage nowadays, you know. Pretty good base stats all around. Void Affinity is always great. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 60% chance of placing a defense down debuff for 2 turns. Damage increases by 20 if the target's HP is less than 60%. The A2 attacks all enemies. What I love about him is that he's immune to all this. Stun, freeze, sleep, provoke, fear, true fear, petrification, debuffs when this skill is not on cooldown, sorry. So if you're not gonna get locked, he's gonna be doing tons and tons of work. It's great that he cannot be controlled by a Sifi or anything like that, you know. The A3 attacks all enemies, has a 80% chance, fully booked 100, to land the True Fear debuff for 1 turn. This is pretty dangerous because you can get polymorphed, but hey, it's pretty good. You have the Weaken as well, which again can get you polymorph. So that's when Leorius lost a lot of value, when polymorph got introduced, and I feel like so many champions lost value because of that freaking blessing that's so overpowered. Then the passive instantly places an unkillable buff on this champion for 1 turn before receiving a fatal hit. Damage increases as the champion's HP decreases by 1% for each one of the HP he loses, you know. And increases ally crit rate in all battles by 24%. Now, the champions that are really at the top nowadays, they kind of like benefit from bringing other things too. They might ignore defense. They might do some crazy things that will allow them to do more damage, to kind of like counter the buffs that everyone has, to counter the idea of not using a buff stripper, you know. But still, Leorius is still a very powerful champion in my opinion, you know. And the next champion that we have on the list, guys, and this might surprise a lot of you, but I really think she has so much potential as a champion if she's utilized right. Ronda Rousey. Not only that she brings damage, but just joining in with the in your corner, dropping the damage. And the good part is that with the A2, blocks passive skills, block active skills. Guess what? Even if she's gonna get polymorphed, she's still gonna land these debuffs. And that's super important when you are fighting Marichka and Taras. And guess what? Marichka and Taras are freaking everywhere now. We're not talking about top 10 Platinum Arena only. We're talking about every freaking where. And you guys probably see it all the time. Gold 5, no. Gold 5, there's still a lot of bot teams. And we can't really make a top based on what teams were fighting in Gold 5, where it's really not competitive. So, how I mentioned, you can use Folly there, you can use Ray, you can use Xavier, you can use Kale, and they're still gonna do an amazing job in Gold 5. But we're talking about the place where you really need to counter the defenses. You really need to use specific champions that bring in something special, you know. Then, the A3, Fury Tremor attacks all enemies 2 times. Damage increases by 30% if this champion has more than 50% HP. Immune to turn meter reduction, thank you for the maintenance, of course we need another one. Immune to turn meter reduction effects when this skill is not on cooldown. And then decreases all the turn meter reduction effects used against this champion by 50% when this skill is on cooldown. Not to mention that Ronda's A2 can land the block active skills on champions like Ultimate Dead Knight. Even if you're landing a weak hit, she's still going to do it. She's such an amazing champion just because of it. Of course, you do need to bring in another nuker to help her to drop the damage. My god, Plarium, we got it. Attention, we got the maintenance. We don't need to see it every 5 seconds. And we have an attack aura in all battles by 30%. But she definitely deserves the place where she is in my opinion, you know. Moving over to the next champion that we have on the list, guys. Rotos is that champion that always makes you think that, okay, he might slide off the meta, but it never seems to do it, you know. His base stats are not that amazing in terms of survivability, in terms of HP, but of course you're gonna end up in building him with pretty good HP, 40k plus, 50k plus, depending on what your gear looks like. And his damage is based on HP and attack. With the A1 attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance to land defense down, also a 25% chance to grant an extra turn. This right here brings so much RNG to the fight, and it allows the champion to recover so fast when he's getting locked by warlords or different champions like this. Of course, you want to have him pretty fast when you are building the champion, and man, he's definitely bringing a lot of value. Plus, if you're attacking Marichka Taras, if you're gonna hit Marichka, Taras is gonna counter attack. He's gonna start ramping up extra turns, and not just that, but he's actually gonna stack extra turns, so he can gain extra turn, extra turn, extra turn. That's how it works against Marichka and Taras. That's why he's so powerful. If you utilize him right, you're gonna get a lot of value. Like when they have 2 revivers in there, of course, Ultimate Death Knight is a massive problem for him at the moment, but when you're fighting teams that don't have Ultimate Death Knight, you can just A3 his Marichka once you cleaned up the rest. Marichka is going to revive with the passive, then with the A2 you're going to kill the other reviver, so that reviver cannot revive Marichka, and then you're going to clean up the rest of the mess from the team, and this is actually very powerful. With the A2 attacks one enemy, destroys the target's max HP by 20%, then adds that HP to this champion's own max HP, which is very, very powerful. The more HP he has, the more damage he's going to do. With the A3, attacks one enemy, will ignore 60% of the target's defense, will also ignore unkillable, block damage. Enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived if this champion has gained maximum amount of HP from the A2 skill. Grants an extra turn if this attack kills an enemy. Very nice on a 3-turn cooldown fully booked, and you get 40% more damage from books, which is just nuts. Not to mention the passive, guys, which it doesn't allow him to be one shot, and if you have Sif in the team, constantly removing all the debuffs from him is very, very powerful. And the next champion we have on the list is gonna be no one else but freaking Harima. What a beast of a champion, not only for Classic Arena, but for Live Arena. Her value just went all the way to the top because she's so damn powerful, guys. Very good base stats all around, and she doesn't only bring damage, right? Like, she brings so much utility all around, and she has a very nice kit. With the A1 attacks one enemy, has a chance to land decrease attack. If the attack is critical, the chance to land the decrease attack will become AoE. Then with the A2, attacks one enemy 3 times. Each hit decreases the target's defense by 5%, all the way up to 30. Each hit increases her own defense by 5%, all the way up to 100%. This is very nice because you're gonna get to ramp up more damage the longer you go in the fight, and instantly activates the A3 skill whenever she kills an enemy with this. This skill is a very solid counter for champions like Rotos, for example, because we were just talking about him before, you know, and all around, just being able to kill somebody with this skill, grant the hit with the A3 after, and just swoop into either clear the mass or land a provoke. So attacks all enemies with the A3, places a provoke debuff for 1 turn. This debuff cannot be blocked or resisted if the target champion is from the Demon Spawn faction. And this is great. Lots of Duchesses, Candrophones, no more Mortu Macabs nowadays in the very high-end Platinum Arena, but you might find some in top 300, 400, 500 while you're doing the Platinum reset, you know. So this is very powerful because it can go through immunity. You don't need accuracy, and the good part about it is that the passive, enemy ignore defense effects are decreased by 50%, and champions from the Demon Spawn faction cannot inflict critical hits on this champion. And this champion will never land weak hits on champions from the Demon Spawn faction. So no weak hits against Mortu Macabs, Duchesses, etc. And man, with increased defense, she hits so damn hard. Great to pair with Sifi if you have her, of course, or other champions that will enable you to put in some work. The aura is resistance in arena battles, so you might not end up in using it as often as you think. The next champion that we have on the list, in my opinion, guys, even though some of you might disagree with this one, I'm gonna explain you why I think that he only kind of like belongs in this spot. Now, when we're talking about defense, it's kind of like a different situation, because for defense, is definitely the #1 nuker. When we are talking about the rest of the things, he might not necessarily be there, you know, like Taras the Fierce. So for offense, it's great if you have 2 of them. If you have double Taras, you're gonna wreck a lot of teams. If you have single Taras, it's not gonna be as easy as you might think, right? Like, you're gonna get some better value out of other champions when you're attacking. If you put Taras in defense, he's the #1 defense champion, hands down. Like, he's just so freaking powerful. With the A1, attacks one enemy 2 times, has a 40% chance of placing decreased attack. Each critical hit fills the thermometer of all allies by 5%, enabling you to rotate much faster. With the A2, attacks one enemy, places a stun debuff for 2 turns, deals double damage to enemies whose attack is equal to or higher than this champion's attack. Always counterattacks with this skill if somebody hits Marichka when they're both in the same team. Very nasty. With the A3, attacks all enemies, damage increases by 15 for each buff on all allies. Some of you guys might not even be aware, but basically, this skill right here deals more damage than Seer's Karma Burn if you have enough buffs. The only thing is it's harder to build Taras than Seer because you need the HP, you need more stats than you actually need on Seer, you know. Heals this champion by 5% for every buff that had its duration increased, restores decreased max HP equal to the amount of any surplus heal, basically. The passives, that's what make him even more powerful. Not only the base stats, not only the rest of the kit, but when attacked, decreases the enemy's attack by 10% up to 50, 25% against bosses, occurs once per skill. Attack reduction resets after each round. An entire arena fight is 1 round, basically. The active effect, which is so annoying, places a fear debuff on all enemies from the Orcs, Ogran tribes, Undead Horde, and Demon Spawn factions at the beginning of each round for 1 turn. This debuff cannot be resisted. It's so annoying when you're just constantly getting fear, man. Like, it's super annoying. That forces you to bring immunity, forces you to bring in different champions. Stone Skin on your offense team is just very, very nasty, actually. And this can get him shipped. So when you're attacking with him, this is another problem that can mess you up. That's why I don't rank him as #1 for offense, because a lot of things can go wrong. The next passive, all incoming damage from skills is reduced by 50%. That's so freaking nasty, man. Just crazy to have so much damage reduction in the kit. And we have increases ally crit rate in all battles by 24%. Now, how I mentioned, This champion is amazing all around. If we're talking about defense, I'm gonna put him as number one threat for pretty much every team. You kind of need to have Marichka in there to be even more powerful, but even without Marichka, he's still extremely strong. When we are talking about offense, I don't think he deserves to be higher than the rest, unless you're running double Tauras, which is kind of like contradicting the point of what we're trying to achieve here. Like, we're talking about one Nuker, we're not talking about using two of them in the same team, you know? So double Tauras is completely broken in offense, in defense, pretty much everywhere. But if you only have one, you might encounter lots of issues when you're attacking strong teams, you know, in a Platinum Arena especially. You can get polymorphed and then you're missing on doing damage. He might get killed straight after it. Lots of things can go wrong. So honestly, I think number 4 is definitely where he kind of like belongs. The next champion is gonna be a bit more tricky because I feel like two of them, they're kind of like fighting head to head for a top 3. And we're talking about Baron and Georgie. Now, it's so situational and it's so hard to say, okay, Baron is number 3, no, Georgie is number 3, no, Baron is number 2, no, Georgie is number 2, because it depends who you're attacking. It kind of like, both of them, they bring so much value all around, and I find it extremely hard to say which one deserves which top. So I'm gonna start with Baron since I'm on this faction, but let me know your thoughts in the comments down below as well. You think Baron is better than Georgie? Do you think Georgie is better than Baron? Again, how I mentioned is situational. When Georgie passives doesn't come in play, you're gonna wish to be like, ah, damn, I wish I used Baron. When his passive comes in play and you break the stone skin, you just rack UDK, you're like, oh yeah, Georgie is the man, you know? So I find it pretty hard, but in a way, I'm kind of leaning toward Georgie, honestly, to be top 2. That's kind of like how I'm feeling it. Baron, with A1, attacks one enemy. Will attack all remaining enemies with any surplus damage if the target is killed. This can become AoE, but very hard nowadays to make it happen with all the UDKs in there. Then, attacks one enemy, places a defense down debuff for 2 turns. This debuff is guaranteed through immunity. You don't need accuracy, and this can get you polymorphed if you're not being careful. The A3 attacks one enemy, damage increases according to the number of buffs on this champion. The more buffs on him, the more damage. And it's pretty hard to use the single targets hit because you're always gonna encounter freaking UDK everywhere, you know, and those hits are constantly going to him. The A4, on the other hand, the Sky Piercer, attacks all enemies, will ignore shield buffs and block damage buffs as well as 50% of the target's defense. This is pretty high damage here. He has one of the best multipliers for a champion that ignores defense on an AoE skill. So 100% Baron, man, still at the very top, and I'm very curious to see when he's actually gonna drop down, if he's gonna drop down at any point in the future. Now, I know we have Quintus, which I'm not gonna rank in the video because we haven't tested him yet. We gotta see how he performs, and then I'm gonna be able to kind of like give you my take on it. But Quintus, the champion you're getting from Live Arena, gets empowered by Baron, right? So that's gonna be a bit like, ooh, will I drop Baron to go to Quintus? We're gonna get to see that in the future. And the aura increases ally attack in all battles by 33%. Baron still the MVP. If you pair him together with Knockdown, you're gonna be able to do tons of work, and just generally, man, pair him with another Nuker. This is kind of like the meta. You're running 2 Nukers in offense now. That's why I'm kind of like constantly mentioning this. You're not really attacking with one champion anymore. Like, it's been like this for quite a few weeks, months now. So, yep, you need a bit of extra firepower in there, you know. The next champion, of course, is gonna be no one else but Mr. Georgie. Now, with A1 attacks one enemy 2 times, 30% chance of repeating the attack, and this can happen over and over again till you go crazy. Tons of damage. Good to take care of Rotos or other champions like that. The A2 attacks all enemies, decreases the turn meter of all targets by 30%. You don't need accuracy for this, and places an unkillable buff on the champion if you kill an enemy. Pretty good damage, especially when his passive procs. The damage can be pretty nasty. The A3 is a very powerful skill though. Like, one of the most powerful skills in the game. Attacks one enemy, will ignore strengthen, stone skin, unkillable, block damage, increase defense, ally protection, shield, will ignore you, will ignore your knowledge, will ignore everything that's in the universe, and then grants an extra turn if this attack kills an enemy. If you're kind of like using it at the right moment to kill that UDK, you're gonna grant the extra turn. Now the passive is a problem, right? The deadly ballet can only be deadly if the 50% chance to ignore 50% of the target's defense is actually there. You have the Helm Smasher on him, then you have the Savage set. So when everything goes good, the damage is just, wow, mind-blowing, nuts. Plus he has very good base stats in terms of attack. He's pretty squishy. His HP is not that great, so it's harder to keep alive. But that kind of like goes for pretty much all the champions. Like for the high-end arena, if you don't have Necrotman to protect your Nukers, it's just painful. You definitely need double Tauras if you want to be able to put in some work. Let me just put it like that. And the number one nuker in the current meta, guys, is no one else but Turvold. And I would have never thought that I'll be saying this, but he is an absolute killing machine, guys. Yes, he does have lower attack, he has higher HP than Georgid, but the good thing is that he brings his own buffs. Again, you're gonna need Necrot with him, you're gonna need Necrot with all of them, but basically, with the A1 attacks one enemy 2 times, has a 75% chance to land the weakened debuff for 2 turns. With the A2, places increased attack, increased crit rate, increased speed, grants an extra turn, and moves over to the Juggernaut, which is on a 3-turn cooldown fully booked, attacks one enemy 2 times, damage increases according to the number of buffs on this champion. If the target is killed, resets the cooldown of this skill. Man, he breaks through Stone Skin. He just destroys anyone in his way. And having the double hit is great because even if you're gonna encounter a UDK, going the first hit is gonna get wasted on him, but the second hit is gonna put down pretty much anyone, man. It's just so powerful. And you're gonna get buffs from Necrot, you're gonna get a bolster, you're gonna get buffs from his own kit. The increased attack is just freaking devastating. Such a powerhouse. And probably people that play Arena will know that the most used nuker on their account is Turvold. And it's so hard for any other nuker to compete with what he can do, because he's putting teams down, man. Like, he's not wasting any time. But guys, this was the top 10 Arena nukers for the current meta, for what we have in the game at the moment. Let me know if you think anything differently. When we are talking about the high-end Arena, you think any of the champions should be swapped around? Very curious to know your thoughts as well, but probably you hear my baby crying, so I'm gonna have to bounce out of here, guys. Much love, appreciate all of you guys watching, and I'll catch you all soon in the next video. Peace.